Hi guys, welcome back to SuperSteel Gaming. It's still here with you here, and today I want to get into another video. Now today guys, I want to talk about rating based matchmaking. Now this is one of the things we're going to see from this dev letter here, along with a bunch of other stuff that will be rolling out this year. Now Enlisted's pretty much going to become a new game this year, so we're going to see how that looks, and today I want to go through the good, the neutral, and the bads of the rating based matchmaking. Now real quickly, just give you guys an idea of what this is, let's read about it. So in the new environment of combining campaigns and armies, matchmaking will learn to divide World War II weapons into several stages of development. Depending on the equipment of your soldiers, they will be assigned a conditional rating. And in the first stages of matchmaking, where the engine is selecting participants for battle, it will try to assemble a session of participants close to each other in terms of rating. If there are enough players in the queue willing to enter a battle with weapons/machines close in level of development, the battle will be initiated taking into account the rating of participants. If the waiting time is too long, the matchmaker will assemble a classic session just like we have now without taking those ratings into account. It will also give enlisted newcomers a better condition to get into the game while still affording our more experienced commanders, as they call it, worthier opponents. Now, guys, let's talk about the goods. One, it will help new players get into the game and kind of get a feeling of what the game is like without having to deal with all the players way above their skill level. The other thing it'll do is it'll help new players get better. Now, I don't necessarily mean in terms of skill, but at least it'll help them learn how to play the game, the basic functions, and what they need to do without constantly being killed. Now, the final thing I think it's going to do, and I think this is the biggest thing, is it's going to take down some of the intensity of the battles that we all see where noobs are getting farmed while pros are battling it out over whatever the capture point is. And so, guys, I think those are really good things, and I think they will positively benefit the game. Now let's talk about the neutral things. Now the neutral things, and what I mean is just that it could go either way. It could be good, it could be bad, but we don't know yet. It could go either way. Now one of the things, guys, and this goes for everything that's coming out in 2023 for Enlisted, there's a ton of stuff, and not just a ton of things that we've seen before, a ton of things that will completely reshape Enlisted as we know it. And I'm afraid that you could have one thing and it goes terribly wrong and people just don't really want, and what that will do is overshadow a lot of the other things that people do want. So even if the matchmaking is really good, I think we could see, if the progression, for example, is not, that overshadowing and saying, oh no, none of this stuff is good. So I do hope that they didn't do too much too fast and that doesn't cause an issue. I'm just a little worried about that. Now, guys, the next thing in the neutral category is cheating. Now, guys, here's what I'm worried about with cheating with this progression system, okay? We have a couple of different interpretations of what it's saying here. One would take into account this word, development, meaning that if the equipment of your soldiers is referring to the development of your research from this tech tree here, then what that would mean is it's okay. Because what we'd be looking at is, well, your conditional rating is going to come from what you've unlocked. But if that's not what it's saying, if it's just saying depending on the equipment of your soldiers, which is kind of the important thing, just your soldiers, and all we're saying here is depending on what your soldiers have equipped at whatever given time will depend on the rating you get, cheating is going to be at least open. I'm not saying it'll happen, but it'll at least be there in the limelight to happen. Because what we will see is you're going to have the availability for somebody to equip 75 to 85% of their ranks or squads or whatever you want to say with low level equipment to push them into the noob category, and either have a scattering of soldiers throughout their squads or one singular squad that's super high upgraded, all the best stuff, and then what they'll do is they'll just use either those soldiers or that squad to cream newbies the whole time. So we could see that, but since we don't really know, it could go either way. Okay guys, we now have the bads. Now I think the bads are pretty bad, and here's why. So the first bad we have is the new player death trap. Now as a new player, you're going to be saturated with battles that only have new players in it. Now this whole thing that we see right here about assembling a classic session without taking these things into account if they wait too long, I don't see that as a realistic thing, because over half of the players that play Enlisted are casual and are going to be on the lower half of these development stages we see right here. What that means, guys, is that almost every time you go to do a battle as a new player, it's going to take those ratings into account. Meaning that players are going to get used to fighting against players on their level. The problem is, if you're never fighting somebody who's significantly above your level in tech or in skill, what that's going to mean is you're not actually going to get better. In fact, as you go through the game and go from stage to stage, you're going to feel like you're getting worse, because every time you're going to get dropped off into a pool with bigger and bigger fish. And since you have no previous experience from the game we have in its form now, you're not going to be ready to necessarily deal with these really strong players who have all this technology that you've had very little contact with. So I'm quite concerned about this, guys. Now, the final bad I want to talk about is the issues with the pro players. Now, as new players, you're going to have plenty of people to play with. Your technology is going to be limited, but here's the issue. The pro player ranks are going to become hyper competitive. Because once you take all the dilution of the mixed player levels out of the game, or at least significantly lower it, you're going to have pro players putting every piece of good technology they have. Right now, in the game, if I don't care anything about in Normandy the M2 carbine, I can put the Garand on all my riflemen if that's my favorite rifle, and though I'm not necessarily going to do quite as good, I can still have a fun time. But the problem is, once we get the mixed player levels out, that's not the case. If you don't want to fall behind, you're going to be forced to put every piece of good. If you unlock a better Thompson, you got to put that better Thompson. If you unlock an M2 carbine, you got to put that M2 carbine. It's going to be a battle and a race to the automatics for the good, solid players. And the problem here is, it's going to make the game hyper competitive. You're going to have tons of players just spamming automatic weapons. The amount of assaulters are going to go through the roof. You're going to have that historical accuracy flair that having mixed player levels give. You know, that you're going to kind of lose that, because you're only going to have straight super powerful weapons as a rule of what you're going up against. And I understand, because they talk about it. They're moving from historical accuracy a little bit. Now, I do understand that, but I think it's going to be very upsetting. So I think this is definitely a bad to a matchmaking system that's going to separate a lot of the pro players in their own just hyper competitive box. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the matchmaking system down in the comments below. I really want to hear you guys' opinions, and this is just based on what we know about it right now. My thoughts could change if we get more information. So thank you guys so much for watching. This is Stiller signing off. I'll see you on the battlefield, soldier.